What's up, y'all? Down in the grass. Check this out. All right. So, I like this. Today is the 20th of April, 2025. It's actually Easter, which is awesome. I just got back from church, and I got some videos to make. We are In The Image Clothing Company. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In The Image Clothing Company. We do a lot of things here. We have four sides to us as a whole, and this is the main side. This is the main side where we address the human body's natural function. We come at it through the skeletal system, the thing that doesn't change. The fat content changes, the muscle mass changes, but we just have a neutral position within every joint of the body, and it has to reside within that, and we show how to do that here. So we have another fourth of us now that is In the Image Clothing Company podcast, where we have discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ, aka the truth of all things, and I get deep and bold and raw and real. We also have another fourth of us In the Image Clothing Company music, where I show sizings and setups of guitars to allow the hands to work, which are essentially the shoulders, as the feet are essentially the hips. Then we have another fourth, which is In the Image Clothing Company dogs, and we let dogs stay natural. Okay? Food, water, materials, collars, leashes. There's a lot that's potentially altering dogs. So, yeah, clothing for everybody. It needs to sit in the same location. Pants need to be entirely above the hips, so there's no restriction to the pelvis. Slightly higher in the front than the rear, so that the core muscles can stay contracted, as every muscle within the body would always be unless altered. The tops that we wear, the seams on top need to be behind the bones on the peak that are the other end of our collarbones, because that's how our shoulders stay in their only neutral position, behind our head. And the edge seams should be right at the very edges. This shirt's slightly a little bit larger than ideal at the edge seams for me, okay? So, but that's where the functionality of the shoulder is. Two things we have as prerequisites under In the Image Clothing Company: shoelacing and tags. All tags have to be removed if they're within clothing, because they're altering the body, causing a physical gap, changing the skeletal system, and or just not allowing musculature to activate. Then the body is compensating in ways that it can't, having to work as a whole. Shoelacing, there's only one technique to weave a rope across the foot of the human being and not alter it. That's what we call In the Image Clothing Company's shoelace technique, found wherever you can find us, 5 words as a whole. In the Image Clothing Company. With that, we tie our shoes evenly over toward the inside to the center line of the human being, because there is one on an earth with gravity: the sternum, the spine, the trachea, the nose, the jaw, stabilizing the entire body. And there we go. So that brings us to this video. This is shoe uppers and the Acheles tendon. This is the upper of a shoe. Okay? This white part's the heel. I mean, no, it's not. That's the sole. But the heel of our feet should ideally be flat on the earth, right? Right, meaning if we didn't have any clothing on us, our feet would be flat on the earth. And sometimes there's heels placed onto shoes, and that just changes the entirety of the body to the tip of the head and the tips of the fingers. But the thing with the upper of the shoe and the Achilles tendon here is, what the Achilles tendon is the calf muscle here being connected to the bone of our heel down at the very bottom. And our neutral lower leg is very similar to our neutral wrist. Straight out from the pinky finger is that neutral wrist. Straight out from the pinky toe are those neutral ankles. That natural outward curvature from the knee down to the base of our heel. And that's how our feet work, is slightly in like this, because they grip arches opposing the center line of the human being. Now, what happens, and it's almost always on the right side. Most all people are right-handed, 85%, give or take, of the earth. And if you don't tie your shoes evenly so that you can just do this, right, and this evenly, because there's two sides to the body, and don't feel left out if you have been tying your shoes unevenly, which changes your whole entire body. I did that until I was 24 years old. Now I'm 25. I founded In The Image Clothing Company very soon after I learned how to tie my own shoes, okay, at 24 years old. So you got to tie your shoes evenly, though. You have to. There's two sides to your body. And what happens is if you're not tying your shoes evenly, this upper can just be slipping against your Achilles tendon back here, and yeah, causing a lot of damage. Because we talk about getting out of these chronic patternings under In The Image Clothing Company, scar tissue building up. There's things called bone spurs, and what'll happen is, since there's only one inline position that the feet track in, and that the ankles dorsiflex and plantar flex in, if they're not allowed to do that, because I'm going to do this, and this is so terrible, but from this point on until I retie this, this is tied incorrect on my right foot, the one I'm currently tying right now, okay? But this is as if I've tied my shoes to the same direction toward the right. It's kind of hard for me to do. I don't even know for sure how to do it because it's wrong and I don't do it like this. But I will for the sake of showing this. So now when I sit, my feet are like this because this foot's just being pushed out by a knot. And this foot can work and this one just can't. And your whole body is just damaged on the right side, as we talk about so often. So, yeah, that's terrible. What happens though is this calf muscle still is connected to this heel bone by an Achilles tendon, and it still only tracks here in line neutral, but yeah, when you tie a knot on top of the ankle, it's just not going to allow that to be the case. Your right foot's going to be doing this, okay? Or whatever side you're not tying over toward the inside, because that's even for the human being. So I'm going to actually tie this correct now before I go any longer with it wrong, but that's just what's happening to people. And so what happens from that is, what bone spurs really are is when a tendon is pulling on a bone and not being allowed to pull in its only inline position. If this is like the heel of my foot and this is the tendon coming up to the calf muscle, okay? Calf muscle here, tendon, heel, okay? The tendon's in between the two, and if it's pulling in a position that's off-centered rather than just in line, then where the Achilles tendon actually connects to the heel, what you can have is like a buildup of tissue, because instead of just working in a nice motion, it's trying to work in an angled position, and so it'll build up scar tissue because it's just being kind of wrenched on and pulled in a weird position. And so what happens is, what that'll cause is slipping of the rear of the upper of the shoe along your Achilles tendon here and along your heel bone, right where that insertion of the tendon is, where I'm saying that scar tissue can get built up. So if you're walking and the rear of your shoes are slipping up and down along your heel / Achilles tendon, yeah, damage. That's just not really going to happen if your shoes are laced and tied the only way the human feet are shaped, in the Image Clothing Company's shoelacing technique. It looks just like this, but I'm not going to actually show how to do it in this. Find us wherever you find us, but I'll show it clearly. These shoes, by the way, are the brand Vans. They've been debranded, but just to give credit in case you can tell what they are, right? No affiliation with them at all by any means as of this moment or up until, but yeah, right. We have this Achilles tendon, and this Achilles tendon is supporting the whole body to the tip of the head and the tips of the fingers. Because what happens is all of our weight on our bodies is being supported by the Achilles tendon. And it needs to be able to be all the way with the heels on the ground, right? Completely deep low squat, so our glutes touch the Achilles tendon themselves. And then from there, it can be very, very plantar flexed as well. Okay, dorsiflexion, plantar flexion of the ankle. Dorsi comes toward your head, plantar is pointing away from your head, okay, with your toes. So here, the only way the feet work, this needs to be allowed to be the case. And now imagine this angle here from this, which is pretty deep angle, all the way to as far as you can get the other way. Imagine that happening every step, every motion your human body ever does within not twisting one of your feet. And the other one is tied correct. It may not be laced quite right, and so affecting the foot down here in its functionality. But as far as rotations go that travel up through the whole body to the tips of the fingers, the tips of the head, that's happening every motion, even sitting down, like right now, because I'm still stabilizing. The body always is activated as a whole if it's not restricted. And so that's all going to be happening through a misalignment because of a rope. And where it's happening at is that Achilles tendon, because it supports the whole body. Every ounce of weight that's above your Achilles tendon, which it connects to the very heel of your foot, everything above there is being supported weight-wise by those tendons. And so what you'll be able to see is when you look at people sitting down, for example, or standing, if you can see the back of their legs, often you'll see their right leg look pretty well neutral and their left one look like this. Okay, I said that wrong. I pointed at the ones I was meaning, but the left leg, I'll just re-say it. The left leg looks pretty well neutral normally, but then the right leg often will come down and the ankle will be like this. On such an angle, the arch will be collapsed, and that neutral lower leg that's from the knee outwardly curving down to the very base of our heels, evenly on both sides, just isn't allowed to be on whatever side of your body is being tied the incorrect way. Any way that's not over toward the center line of the human being, okay? And what happens is this sticks with you. So you'll hear the term, whatever you want to call it, about heels of feet, the Achilles, things that they put the word plantar in. I don't want to say all the words and whatever, because people put a label on things and it's not the human body's fault, but it's because it's placed within something man-made and then deeply ingrained in an incorrect position. And what happens too back here is everything stiffens up. The tendon and the calf muscle, they're trying to just allow the leg to just be what it will be, as if it were laced and tied correct in the Image Clothing Company's shoelace technique, the only way the human feet are shaped. But when you're walking or doing any motion and there's slipping happening on the rear of the heel, not only the misalignment from what tying or lacing are doing to the angle, that's happening as well, but that slipping on the heel will cause your toes to really grip the sole of the shoe to try to not allow it to slip back here, right, from your toes. They'll be gripping to try to hold this upper on the rear of our shoe in place where our Achilles is. But then what that'll do is stiffen up all this rear of the leg. So the calf muscle will get tight, and the Achilles and all the motion from the rear of the knee here down to the heel will just get shortened and stiff, because the body doesn't want this upper of the shoe to be wearing against its heel or its Achilles tendon. And so it's going to do all that it can to stiffen, to not allow that to be the case. But then your body all through the rest of it is compensating as well, because the body has to work as a whole. So it's really important, not only, as we always talk about under In the Image Clothing Company, and really pretty well always, because it's in our intros, it's one of our 2 prerequisites, shoelacing and tying, the only way the human feet are shaped. Another thing that happens is just the slipping here. So it's really important to have shoes that you kind of have to have a balance, because we don't want to restrict the plantar flexion, the pointing of the feet, by having this upper of the rear of the shoe where the Achilles is be in the way so that it hits the rear of the leg. But you also don't want the upper here where the Achilles tendon is to be so low that it's slipping around while you walk, because just the slipping alone can create scar tissue. Even if they are laced and tied correct, if there's just play within the rear of the shoe here, it's just going to be slipping on your actual physical body's heel. And so that can really, really affect the Achilles. So we say things bold here. We talk about how things, quote unquote, aren't real. Arthritis, man, right? I mean, all the things that we talk about, really what it is the body only has a neutral within everything. If it's not allowed to be that, it's going to be in pain. It's going to be stiff. It's going to build up scar tissue, and it's going to try to work around something man-made placed onto it. So that's why I say, because it's the truth, when I say under In the Image Clothing Company, clothing is the only fix to your physical problems, it is. Anything can come up with a human being, and anything can be causing anything. But if there's anything being caused by clothing, then that's the problem, period. And it just is. So, yeah, there you go. I love high tops, and I've mentioned it. There's actually a video that I made under the main site here of In the Image Clothing Company titled The Benefit of High Tops. And I do love that, but just make sure whatever you do wear, that it's nice and secure around your heel and Achilles tendon without restricting it to the highest degree that we can allow for no restriction to be there. And sometimes high tops are actually more beneficial with that, even though they're taller, right? So there we go. That's the Achilles tendon. Yeah, there's a lot with shoes. These are not the most ideal shoes for the feet. The soles are pretty stiff, and the toe box is slightly too narrow. And I've done a lot of modifications to these personally since I purchased them, but doing all that we can to just keep our feet natural, because they're the foundation of our whole body. And we talk about shoes very often under In the Image Clothing Company. I talk about how I also have no affiliation with this brand up until today's date, or ever until now either. But Xero Shoes, the brand, Xero, their whole goal and slogan is living life feet first, and they do it well. So I just like to give credit where I do give credit. So we need to be very intentional about the feet, but that Achilles tendon is something that gets blamed when it's not its fault. And so really, actually, all that I've said within here is pretty well everything you'd even need to know to just keep your Achilles tendons healthy. People call it the Achilles heel. Well, because there's even that phrase when there's something in life that's like not somebody's thing so much, it kind of clashes with them or they have a hard time with it. It's often labeled as their Achilles heel. and it's actually a tendon. The heel itself is its own bone that the tendon connects to from the calf muscle. But the reason why that phrase is there is because there is a lot of problems a lot of the time that people have with pain and damage to their Achilles tendons. And as I just said, pretty much everything within this video is all you would need to know to allow them to stay healthy. So, as we say, right, the goal is natural under all four sides of us in the Image Clothing Company. If you had never placed shoes onto your feet and you were just walking where I am now on soft grass or just the earth, right? Any natural part of the planet that hasn't been altered by human beings, how would your feet work in those cases? And that's how we know how to place clothing onto us and where the intentionality needs to be placed. So, thank you. Yeah, check out the other three sides to the company if you'd like to. We just discuss things as they are. We're only here to help. We're not here for sales by any means. So, yeah, there's your Achilles tendons. Take care of them. Well, there's those little pull tabs sometimes on shoes, and even that can press into the Achilles, and then the body will just try to reject something that it feels is against it or unnatural that it shouldn't be there subconsciously without you thinking about it. So yeah, just be intentional about this area here, this whole section of the rear of your lower leg, okay? And socks as well, right? Put them on correct. Follow that outward curvature of the leg when you put them on. And if you have socks that are stopping right at where that flexion of the ankle is as well, that's not quite ideal because that's right on the joint. And so that's why tall socks can actually be very beneficial, as high tops can, right? Like that video I referenced. That's a similar thing. Well, pretty much the same thing, actually, yes. So the Achilles heels. Well, all right, the Achilles tendons. One thing though, when you do start tying your shoes evenly, if you have been tying them unevenly, then the body just needs to get rid of the scar tissue that's built up over time, and it just takes some time for that to be the case throughout the entirety of it. So you can probably notice though, as I was saying about how you can see that angle when shoes are tied unevenly on people's almost always right foot, just because right-handedness, right, rather than evenly over toward the inside. You can see it without their shoes on. You can look at people's heels, even your own, right, and you can see the built-up scar tissue on the base of the right heel. You can see the angle and the insertion of the tendon to the heel, because that tendon is just right beneath the skin right there. There's not musculature between or anything else that's not going to allow you to see it from the exterior of the body. So you can just see, looking from left to right, the difference in just how the body's formed and grown over time because clothing placed onto it. Shoes are clothing. We talk about anything placed onto the human being as clothing because it's clothing the body with something, right? So there's your Achilles tendon and just how to let it be natural. Yeah, there's never any getting the body to do anything. It's designed by God in the image of Jesus Christ. That's where our 5-word name as a whole comes from, in the Image Clothing Company. It's just a mechanical machine, and all we have to do is allow it to work. So there you go, okay? Achilles tendons. But when I'm saying scar tissue and ridding it after X amount of time of it getting built up, what the body's doing at the very base of it travels through all of it, okay? And so that tendon really affects how this knee function is, and so there's just a lot that the body will have to get out of patterning wise after we stop altering it. And that's a good thing, but sometimes, yeah, it's quite a degree of deeply ingrained stuff happening within the body to just get it to be normal again, right? So there you go. Yeah, tags and tongues of shoes, right? As we remove all tags, and as shoes are clothing, that means, yes, included within the tongues of the shoes, at least get texture to them. Sometimes I'll just make a lot of slits with something sharp into the tags so that the ankle can actually activate. And yeah, it's so big, man, because anything you're ever doing and your feet are not aligned just evenly because they have to be, then what's happening is that's first and foremost going straight to the Achilles tendon before it can go travel through the rest of any part of your body, because our feet are the lowest point on the earth and gravity just pulls us down, and our Achilles tendon connects to the very base of our heel. So it's actually one of the biggest things in the human body. Seriously. So, but yeah, I mean, see this dorsiflexion versus the plantar flexion, just the distance. What you'll notice is on the side that you've been tying any way that's not evenly over toward the inside, which is probably your right foot, you'll notice there's just less motion than the left, right? Don't take my word for it. Don't believe me. I always say that. You don't have to believe us on anything under In the Image Clothing Company, but we just discuss things as they are. So truth is truth, meaning it's apart from all of us. It manifests itself to you if you try it. You don't have to believe it, and it's still true. So there you go. I will show this pretty clearly, the shoelacing technique, just because it's huge. But we have our In the Image Clothing Company's official shoelacing technique video under where you can find us, anywhere that you can. So it's the exact same all the way up. After the first crossing of laces, right? It goes the exact same all the way up, and then it's just the exact opposite on both feet, just as we tie our shoes the exact opposite on both feet, because there's two sides to the human being, and then your feet can just work, okay? So, like I said, it's actually Easter 2025. The 20th of April is the date. So my name is Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. We've got a lot of good stuff here. We come at things in a lot of ways, and everything that we talk about applies to every human to ever live. So that's bold, but it's the truth. So stick around, and I'll keep making content as I do. And I'm so grateful to be able to. Yeah, thank you.